Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order our meeting for Tuesday, February 20th for 6 p.m. Thank you. I want to just make a note that Kathy Burkhardt Jessen, our mayor, is joining us virtually, and Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Reagan cannot make it tonight. So it will be just the three of us, just so you know. Additions to the agenda. There is one item, 12.1C, CAO 04-2024, alternate county council appointee. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, nature thereof. Seeing none. Announcements, I will leave it to Ron to read the land acknowledgement at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to acknowledge that we are allies of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities and our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and communities that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources and continue to shape the history and economy of the township. We recognize the unique role Indigenous communities have in the development of our communities. The contribution from Indigenous communities ensure the sharing of unique perspectives and traditional knowledge. The township recognizes the importance of consulting with our Indigenous neighbors and communities in an effort to build constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagement to inform our decision-making and build partnerships. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous people endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect.
Thank you, Ron. We have no closed sessions. Public meeting. We have a public meeting tonight. That council adjourned its regular meeting at 6:03 and move into a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended. If I could get someone to move that and second it. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Kathy Burkhardt Jessen. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, I'm just gonna let everybody know how tonight's proceedings are gonna proceed. Members of the public who wish to receive any further information on any applications being heard or considered today are asked to send an email to planning@lucanbiddulph.on.ca requesting further information. Please be advised that comments expressed and any written material presented will become a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have questions after the meeting on the application being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the planner, Dan Fitzgerald. Members of the public who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the application. Please note, all questions and comments shall be directed to the chair of the meeting. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and the R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and decorum throughout the meeting. The order of the proceedings for the planning application in front of us will be as follows. First, I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent will be given an opportunity to speak to their application. Then the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions and provide their comments. Please state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. And I will ask you to sit down and speak at the mic just so that our virtual Kathy can hear you, so please do that. The municipal clerk will then note additional comments received, circulated agencies, and the public not included in the planning report. The committee may then ask questions of the applicant or staff. All questions and comments shall be directed through myself as the chair. I will then ask for consideration of motions regarding the application. Okay, I'm going to so the application before us tonight is the one filed by Pemic Lucan Land Corporation for draft plan of subdivision approval, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for lands situated at the north end of Kleinfeld Ave and the west of Princess Street, legally described as part of lot 65, plan 210, and part of lot 5, concession SLRE. I'll pass it over to Dan now. Thank you.
Through the chair, thanks members of council as well as members of the public who are here joining us this evening. So the purpose of the report before council tonight is to fulfill the public meeting requirements and obligations for a subdivision application, that being 39T LB 2301, as well as a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment, as well as official plan amendment application for a proposed draft plan of subdivision. So the applicant in this case is proposing two generally encompassing separate parts. So in this case, the first being an extension of Kleinfeld Avenue with 10 building lots proposed for single detached dwellings and a cul-de-sac. And the second is an extension of Princess Street, showing 2 lots on the north side, encompassing a total of 4 semi-detached units. So alongside the proposed draft plan of subdivision, the applicant has also submitted an official plan amendment and a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. The subject property as a whole is approximately 11 hectares in area, and it is located north of Kleinfeld Ave, west of Albert Street and Princess Street, and south of William Street. So subject to the application, the proposed development would consist of lands that are approximately 3 hectares in size, and these would constitute the lands that are currently within the settlement boundary of Lucan. The remainder of lands, that being 7.9 hectares, are located west of Kleinfeld Avenue, as noted above, and they are outside of the settlement area at this particular point in time, and they do not formulate part of this particular application. The lands are surrounded by low-density single detached dwellings to the east and south, as well as a mix of residential and industrial uses to the north. They also have agricultural lands located adjacent to the west. Municipal drain, that being the Bend Drain, does bisect the property on a northwest angle, and the lands are fully regulated by the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, as well as largely identified as a natural heritage feature in the Middlesex Natural Heritage System Study 2014. The lands are designated settlement area and urban community in Middlesex County's official plan, and they are designated residential in the Township of Lucan Biddulph official plan. Additionally, I would note that portions of the land are also identified as hazard lands in Schedule A and D of the township's official plan. They are zoned a future residential zone, as well as a FR zone in the township Lucan Biddulph's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So as I had indicated in the report, the developer is planning to construct the development primarily in a single phase, the servicing occurring separately between the 2 sites. Development is proposed to connect to the existing water lines running through Kleinfeld Ave as well as Princess Street. They are proposing an extension to a sanitary line on Kleinfeld, and it is proposed which would service the 10 single detached lots. And the lots off Princess Street would connect into an existing sanitary line. Respecting stormwater management, the applicant has proposed both quantity control and quality control measures based on the preliminary engineering designs that the township and county have received. In order to implement the draft plan of subdivision, the applicant is requesting 2 separate zones for the subject lands. The site is currently zoned a future residential or FR zone, as well as an open space OS zone in the zoning bylaw. So as depicted on attachment 16 to the planning report, the 10 single detached lots north of Kleinfeld are proposed to be a site-specific R1 zone. This zone would permit reduced lot areas, reductions to the minimum lot frontage requirements, increases to the maximum lot coverage, reductions to building setbacks for the front facades, whereas the garages would still be required to be set back at 6 meters, reductions to the rear yard setback requirements, and an increase to the maximum permitted height from 10 meters to 10.5 meters. So in the proposed lots on Princess Street, which are preliminarily designed for semi-detached dwelling units, are proposed to be rezoned to a residential second density exception zone. And this would permit the construction of single detached dwellings. The applicant is requesting the following relief through their site-specific zone. an increase to the maximum lot coverage from 40% to 50%, a reduction to the front yard setbacks to 4.5 meters, whereas the garage would remain at 6 meters. A reduction to the rear yard setback from 10 meters to 6 meters, and an increase in maximum permitted height from 10 meters to 10.5 meters. The county, the Middlesex County official plan does identify Lucan as a settlement area, and it does defer to municipal official plans to delineate the boundaries of our settlement areas. The lands are subject to the application. The lands that are subject to this particular application are within the settlement area of Lucan, and they are designated residential within the township official plan. Planning staff has completed a preliminary review of the proposal against the provincial policy statement, the county of Middlesex official plan, as well as the township of Lucan Biddulph's official plan. Several policies have been identified in the planning report, which will be utilized to prepare a future recommendation report for council's consideration. The public can view the policy outlined in the planner's information report, which is posted in council's agenda package on the township's website. So notice of the application was circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. The township will continue to receive correspondence from both stakeholders and agencies, as well as from the public. Comments we have received by the community have been circulated to members of council in advance of tonight's meeting. Most of the comments are technical in nature and still under review by the township, county, as well as the Conservation Authority. I want to ensure generally the public that the comments received here tonight and submitted previously will be considered and addressed when bringing forward a recommendation report to council. We simply just don't have all the answers at this point as we're still reviewing all the information. In general, concerns received from the public are similar to comments that were made by the county, the township, as well as the Conservation Authority during pre-consultation with the application. These matters generally relate to the themes of hazard land as well as stormwater management for the proposal. Technical studies completed by the applicant prior to submission are being reviewed by the Conservation Authority to ensure any proposed development does meet the strict hazard land policy controls of the province of Ontario. So with that said, I am recommending council receive tonight's report for information and to listen to any comments from council as well as the public when considering a recommendation for a future meeting of council. So thank you, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that the council or the public has tonight. But just keep in mind or bear in mind, we don't have all the answers at this point as we're still reviewing all the information as everyone else is as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'd just like to ask the applicant or agent if they'd like to add anything further. Is Craig on virtual? He's not. Okay. Colin is here also. If you would like to add anything else, Colin, at this time. Okay, no, thank you. Okay, so now what I'll do is if anyone from the public is now will be an opportunity to speak. If you have any comments, I'll just say when someone speaks, if you concur with the comments, and you can simply say I concur with the comments, and or if you'd like to add to that or take away from that, I mean, feel free. You certainly don't need to repeat them. You can certainly say you concur with them and then be on record for that if you like. So I'll ask at this time if anyone from the public would like to say anything. That's been said. Okay, if you could sit down in the chair, turn on the mic and say your full name and then also your street, please, or your address. Again, the main reason for that is we have someone virtually, just to remind you. That's why I ask of that. Yep, so she can hear you. And it'll stay on. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Greg Spalrich. My address is 102 Marlene Street in Lucan. And I guess my question I have about the Conservation Authority is, to what degree have they been contacted and what discussions have been made? Because I know living adjacent to that block of bush behind my house, there's quite a bit of wildlife through there and nesting birds that come in, have been coming there for years. You know, I've seen eagles fly over them, not to say they're nesting there, but seen herons in there and all types of songbirds, insects, plants. So has there been any consultation to identify if there's any species in there that should be looked at closely? Because as I look at the diagram here for the subdivision, I notice it's going to cut into that bush lot quite a bit. So I'm assuming that's going to be just taken down. So I guess that's, and I guess the other question would be, I just want to make sure I understand the diagram here where it's a designated area outlined in, looks like red, and it says OS. So is that like open space zone, or is that, now that's where the bend drain goes through. So it's very wet back there. Is there any indication that there's going to be any development behind that area?
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm going to thank you for the question. I'm going to ask for some assistance from Dan on your first question on communication with the ensemble and species and how that process works, or if it does happen. Dan, should that question be directed to yourself or someone else in this room, or be parked? Okay. Dan, okay.
Yeah, so through the chair to the resident here. So yeah, absolutely. The Conservation Authority, in this case, the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority has been involved with this particular application since 2020. So our initial conversation with them was effectively to raise the concern about the potential flood hazard areas, as well as the natural heritage features that are located within those particular areas. So the applicant, through their engineer, has been in consultation with them to work through a more detailed analysis. It's called a two-stage analysis for a flood hazard area, which does, Lucan's official plan does permit a two-stage analysis. So what that basically aims to do is figure out which lands are considered the actual flood hazard area, and then the flood fringe area. As per provincial legislation, we can't develop in flood hazard areas, but development within flood fringe areas is technically permitted, subject to certain standards that the conservation authorities would put in place. So there's certain engineering design standards that they can do to help mitigate any potential concerns within that particular area for flooding. So they're still actively working with the conservation authority on that particular aspect. They have done some pretty detailed flood hazard engineering and modeling to show where the flow of water currently is and where it could go, and splitting the model between where they think the water is going versus where traditionally they thought the water was going. So now that's not being a hydrological engineer, I couldn't give you any more information than that. There is a report that is included with the applicant's submission, which was included in the council agenda package. But yeah, so at the end of the day, the Conservation Authority essentially, because it is a hazard land, would have to sign off on any development within that particular area. So there is a permitting process established through the province, which basically says if it is a regulated land, they have to get a Section 28 permit before any building permits can get issued. So in this particular case, we wouldn't proceed with issuing draft plan approval unless we were confident that they could receive a Section 28 permit from the Conservation Authority. So that's still working. Those reviews are still ongoing. So that kind of, I guess, deals with the first question. The second question you had, if you mind, okay, was related to, has anyone looked at what the natural heritage features are, the birds, the insects, those types of things. So yeah, as part of the submission package that the applicant has made to both the county as well as the township, we did require what's referred to as a development assessment report. And what that does is it specifically looks at the natural heritage features of the area. It looks at what the existing species are and whether or not there's any species at risk that are within the particular area. The study that was conducted has showed that there are no species at risk in this particular area. It does, however, indicate that there are certain areas that they want to maintain as protected. And that's basically what you see. The limits of development in this particular case is that bulb of the cul-de-sac and then the 2 lots on Princess. The remainder of the lands is intended to be protected through that open space zone. So that's what that zone does, is just basically it protects that land for no development in the future. And that kind of wraps up, I guess, into the third question you had there, is what happens with that open space zone. Effectively, that particular area shown on the notice map and on their zoning map is protected. in perpetuity. So that can't be developed based on today's natural heritage feature standards.
Could I?
Thank you,
can I
Dan.
just add something for that? Okay, is that on still? Or no?
Yep, you're good. Yep, no,
Oh,
you're,
it's on,
there you are.
okay.
on the-
I was wondering if, just through my own records, if I could submit, because I know you had mentioned something about the endangered species and that they recognize it as being none. If I could submit somehow actual photographs of what goes on there during the summer months and the actual species that are there. Because I was a little taken aback by the mention that there wasn't any species in there that would be threatened, but in my view, I think there would be. So if I could submit something to you at a later date showing the significance and sort of the evidence of what actually goes on there on an annual basis from spring till summer, if that's allowable.
So I'm gonna just, I think the question in there is, can you submit further information after tonight?
Sure.
And I believe you can, and which I'll have Dan answer that. And I believe there might be a time limitation to that. I'm not sure, or it's not. I don't think there really is, maybe not until, but I'll let Dan answer that question. And that is simply, can they provide more further information?
Yeah, so through the chair, what I would say is any additional comments that anyone in the public has, any agencies, anyone effectively can continue to submit comments for consideration, both of the county and the township. If there are certainly endangered species within those particular areas, then we would certainly then kick it out because that's a higher level review than us. That goes to species at risk, which then involves the province and the federal government. So that would be something that we would certainly want to know in terms of evidence as to what's going on in that particular area for sure.
Thank you, Dan. That's good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I will ask if there's any other further questions from the audience. Okay, if you can just turn on the mic and then state your name and address. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, councillors. My name is Mark Chambers. I'm here with my wife, Marcia. We live on 158 Princess Street, which is a property adjacent to one of the applications. So I guess I have some comments or questions. And my concern is, I guess our biggest concern is wrapped around the flood zone or water, what's going to happen with the water. So currently our property, there's a kind of a natural swale that runs down the back of Princess Street there between the properties off of Prince William and ours. And when there's a lot of storm water, it rolls through our yard quite extensively and ends up in kind of the natural catch basin that's there at the back of the property that's in question for development. And I guess two things that aids for us is one, the water that comes through our property is gone. So it reduces the risk of flooding in our basement. And also that at the same point, the water isn't rushing into the Bend Drain, which reduces risk of flooding other areas as well. So I guess my question / concern is, has there been due diligence done in order to take care of the risk of flooding? And I guess the double barrel question on that is, what happens in a year or two's time if all of a sudden we do start getting wet basement? Who's liable for that?
Okay, thank you, Mark. Again, maybe not, you have maybe we will or won't have an answer tonight, but how does that answer come around? If Dan, you could, or you want to redirect it or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll do my best. Again, not a hydro engineer, but generally speaking, when we our standards for subdivision development is basically post development has to meet pre-development flows, and that theory holds true for grading as well. So when we talk about the potential for additional runoff and things like that based on impervious surfaces like roads, homes being built, gutters, eaves, those types of things, the developer, the applicant, basically has to offset whatever that additional runoff flow is in storage somewhere on site. The most common way to do that is a stormwater management facility or a pond. So we're still in the process of going through and reviewing exactly the detailed engineering behind what this particular applicant is proposing. But generally speaking, in terms of subdivision development, we wouldn't accept anything that would reduce or increase our risk of flooding or stormwater management surcharge to neighboring properties.
Thank you. Mark, anything further?
And yeah, and yes, just to kind of add to that, I guess a comment on the stormwater management. It does concern me that that area is mapped currently under the AC Subwell Bayfield as a flood zone, and why we would build in a flood zone is beyond me. I mean, I used to live in Alberta. There's a town south of Calgary called High River, and historically they built in the flood zone, and then after some flooding, they're no longer allowed to live there, so they had to leave. And I think part of it is driven from just the way the weather patterns are changing. We are getting more extreme, rains, droughts, et cetera, et cetera. So the risk of flooding is becoming more and more. And I think, as we all know, the more farmland we tile, we take away the natural sponge, so that dumps right into all these waterways and drains. So it just increases the water flow all the time. So our biggest concern, I guess, is the risk of flooding, and making sure that we don't have a problem, because it's all very well to build dwellings there and leave, and 2 years later we have water in the basement, and then who's on the hook for that? I know we will be, and no one else, I expect. So that's our biggest concern. And I guess some of the other concerns is, I mean, as was noted when the application was read out, and some of the adjustments that are being applied for, to increase the property that could be built on, increase the height closer to the road, less yardage and that. It just seems like what we're trying to do at the end of that street is really jam as much property in there as we possibly can, without thinking about, other folks that are living around there. I mean, it's an area down that street which is single family dwellings, and now at the end of the street we want to stick these semi-detached properties up, which, I mean, it's a bit of a bottleneck, that street anyway. I mean, the garbage truck has to back down that street, and we've had at times where a truck's been going Prince William Street, and they've ended up coming down that street, and then that's a real problem to get them to back out, because they have a big tough time turning around. Currently the snow truck and those things can turn around at the end, but I'm not sure what's going to happen if there's further development, and how you're going to deal with the traffic, because there's going to be a lot more cars there, especially with 4 homes there, and where all the parking is going to be, because currently parking on the street in the winter is a problem. So we want to make sure that would be taken care of as well. And just for the record, I did submit an application to the town on our concerns as well. So
Yeah, thank you. We did, just so you know, we did receive that, and it'll be mentioned later on here. Yeah, thank you, and be part of the records.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will ask if there's anyone else from the public. Okay. You just again state your name and address. And the mic is on for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gerald Campbell, 125 Kleinfeld Ave. We filed a requisition with the town on February 15. As long as that's on record, you have that. I don't need to take your time tonight.
Oh, and I'll just have staff confirm that for 1 second. Oh, I'm yes, yeah, Tina, yeah, and I sure, yes, we do have it on file, and it will be all noted. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further? Again, if you just state your name and address, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Connie Shemicki at 127 Kleinfeld Ave. And just confirming as well that I put in a written submission, and just pertaining to the hydro line services and just the drainage system around the property, that it's just been, and then I will just wait to hear back, because that's the process.
Yes, so I'll just, Dan, I know we did receive that, and it will be part of the discussion that will be on file, but Dan, anything further to add to that? No, just that is the case.
Through the chair, yeah. So we have certainly received the comments from both Gerald and Connie, and they are included as part of the public record for the application.
Yes.
And is there anything that I need to do further in, for information about the hydro line and service lines?
Yeah,
Jeff?
and through the chair, and I've been talking to Connie, and yeah, definitely it'll be brought up with hydro. And it'll be one of the things when we do look at these developments, hydro does their own engineering
Right.
for these developments. And so it'll be a direct discussion with hydro rather than the developer on this, but we kind of all work together at the end to get it done. But it'll be a discussion I'll have with hydro about the easement that you have. And I'll just say that the easement that's there is a hydro easement, so it is a discussion with hydro.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further? You can come back up. Sure. Okay, thank you. I would, again, with being virtual, I would like you to repeat your name and address. Just, yep, just so, yep.
Yeah, my name is Greg Spollerich, 102 Marlene Street in Lucan. Just a couple of quick follow-up questions I forgot to mention. Maybe I missed it in your previous talks, but will Kleinfeld and Princess be joined? Is that going to be a sort of a street that's going to run through?
Thank you. I'm just gonna, that'll be a quick answer, I'm sure.
Yeah, and through the chair, no, there will not be a connecting link other than maybe a walkway at some point, but no, not a connecting street.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second quick question is, earlier, I think it was last fall, where on our street, on Marlene Street, the residents on that side all received a legal document in the mail from PEMIC. And we were a little confused to what it meant. And they were looking for signatures for us to sign in that package. So we gathered together and we all talked about what we received, the residents, and we're all kind of taken aback on what was going on here. I think I made a phone call on behalf of the residents on that side of the street, kind of inquiring what that meant and what it was going to lead to. I never got an answer back, but we felt as residents that it was a little bit, I don't know, term to use, threatening, I guess, in a sense, the way it was explained to us in that package. And I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. I forgot it on the coffee table when I walked out. But are you aware of that, or has that been addressed at all in any capacity?
Well, I think we need to stay with what's in front of us. I think that's important. So I guess I would just, unless Dan's got another, I would just, if you want to submit it for information, but I don't think we should discuss something that we haven't, that's not in front of us. But Dan, well, I mean. Okay, offline, sure. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I don't, yeah, so.
Okay, so,
So Dan, you'll talk to
Okay.
thereafter. Okay, thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Anything further? Now, okay, thank you very much for all the comments, the emails and the input. I'm now going to pass it over to the municipal clerk for just to review the additional comments that some we already realized we received, but Ron's just going to confirm them.
Yeah, so Mr. Deputy Mayor, just to confirm, we did get both letters, one from Connie and one from Gerald Mark Chambers. And those two were forwarded to the members of council, and they will be included in the formal record as well. So just to confirm, Mr. Chambers and Mrs. Chimicki, both your letters have been included, even though they came after the original agenda was published last Thursday. So there.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, I'm going to now ask the committee if there's any questions of the applicant or staff. I will look to Alex and Mayor Kathy Burkhardt. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you for that. I really don't have any questions because I do think that the comments that the public have submitted really align with some of the notes that I've made on this file. So I appreciate the public coming out and expressing their concerns. I guess, I mean, Dan, my question would be for Dan about what sort of timelines we're looking at, because from what I'm gathering, there's still a lot that has to still come into play. And what sort of timeline are you thinking? And so there's that question. And back to the ABCA, will they, I assume, they will also be submitting comments as part when you come back to council with your report, and where we are with ABCA and their assessment. And then the third one I had was, again, just the traffic concerns on Princess. I mean, I think everything else will be addressed as we work through this application. So I won't repeat anything, but those were my three things I just kind of want to highlight: the timelines, where we were with ABCA comments, and just at a very high level addressing the traffic concerns on Princess.
Thank you.
Yeah, so through the chair to Mayor, so in terms of timelines, generally, Planning Act effectively dictates our timelines for review and approval. It does say that with a combined OPA, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment application, we have to have a decision within 120 days of submission of complete application. So at this point, we're in and around, I think around the 60-day mark or so. So it will be sometime within the next couple months that we'll be coming back, not likely March, maybe April, maybe May, with a recommendation. We still feel like there's, a lot of information that needs to be digested from certainly the technical perspective. We're still waiting from comments from our own engineering technical review, and then as well with the ABCA. So that kind of answers the timelines that we're thinking of. So I would hope to have a recommendation before council sometime in May as to, providing a decision. Keep in mind, though, both for council, as you are likely aware, as well as the public, when it comes to draft plan approval, the county is the approval authority for that. And draft plan approval is effectively, we give you the authority to go out and complete the more detailed technical designs that we want to see to prove that this can actually work. So there'll be a number of conditions that are placed in a draft plan approval, should it be approved, that then effectively require the developer to go out and spend, a lot of time and effort on, and those more detailed studies and analysis as to how all these things are going to occur. So keep in mind, just if, if council does approve draft plan conditions, the county approves draft plan conditions, it's still on the applicant to actually prove and clear those conditions with the county at the end of the day, as well as the township. Also in these particular cases, when it comes to zoning, we would always place or request the placement of a holding zone on the actual lands. And what holding does is effectively, it says that the lands are zoned, but development can't occur until all these things happen. So in these particular instances, usually we have holding symbols that relate back to the clearance of draft plan conditions and executions of subdivision agreements and all these things to ensure that there's safeguards in place for the township, the residents, as well as the county and in this case, the Conservation Authority. So that kind of gives you a broad overview of what happens in terms of process as well. When it comes to ABCA, we have been, because of the complexity of this particular application, I think I mentioned before, we've been working through consultation in this particular instance with the applicant since 2020. So that's the first time that they had approached the municipality with a potential proposal. Since that time, they have been in several discussions with the Conservation Authority. They've done a number of different engineering studies with them scope studies with them as the kind of the lead at that. From the county's perspective, from the township's perspective, we basically, we have to take a backseat almost to that discussion because they're the approval authority when it comes to hazard lands. But certainly, we wouldn't be proceeding unless they were certainly satisfied that these lands can be developed and they can be developed in a safe manner. So we do have preliminary comments from ABCA prior to the actual formal submission. We're still waiting for those formal comments to come out of them, but I would expect those to come relatively soon. And then in terms of Prince Street, yeah, we have certainly, Jeff and I have even had those discussions. Heard today specifically from Blue Water, same kind of concerns about access. How do they get a truck down there? How do they provide service? They don't like backing up. That's not the preferred method. In most cases, they don't back up. So we will be looking at solutions or requesting solutions from the developer how to deal with that. That could look like a bulb cul-de-sac if necessary, or a T turnaround intersection that would allow trucks to pull in, back, and then drive out again. And that would be consistent both for garbage recycling, for fire emergency access, and snow clearing as well. So that's certainly a concern that we have identified on our end as well, and something that we're still looking into.
Anything further to add, Mayor Kathy? Okay, Alex, do you have anything to add?
Actually, Dan covered it quite well when we were talking about species at risk and endangered species. There's a very clear definition of what those are. Displacing nesting birds or whatever is one thing. It can be mitigated through tree planting and pollinator garden planting and things like in that extra land. But the species at risk and endangered species are a very clearly defined thing and are handled by the Conservation Authority. So.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I guess just a couple of things to add. I concur. I used to live on Princess Street, and parking and that end, and the truck, and I do hope you can, if this is viable and there is a solution to building there, I do hope we can make it safer there for vehicles and things at the end to turn around. Concern with parking too. I don't know if it'll be possible, or if we can, it'd be nice to have either double wide parking there, or like for the townhomes, or deeper laneways, just because other places, sometimes in our community, you can go down a side street and park, but there you're stuck. I mean, you can just go there. Plus, I can say even on council, I got a parking ticket on that street. So yeah. So anyways, I hear you. So no, it would be nice for the developer if he can create something, because there is just, it'd be different if there was a safe shoot off, and there just simply isn't. But I wanted to make that comment, and basically that's it. I just want to thank everyone for their input, and have a good night. You can continue to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, but I am now going to ask, I got a recommended motion here that the report number PL-01-2024 be received for information. Get someone to move that. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And that council adjourn the public meeting at 6:45 and reconvene its regular meeting. Moved by Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen, seconded by Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'll just, here we go. So adoption, no delegation, presentation, or petitions. Adoption of the minutes, that the regular council meeting minutes of February 6, 2024, and the special meeting minutes of February 12, 2024 be approved as circulated and amended. If we get someone to move that, second it. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. For correspondence, we didn't have anything pulled. so unless someone wants to speak to any of the correspondence, I will ask that the correspondence items listed herein be received for information. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Kathy Burger-Jessen. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Committee reports. I do not have anything for Blue Water Recycling to report. Nothing, certainly nothing new. CDC, nothing. Lake Huron, Mayor Kathy Burger-Jessen, did you have something to speak to on that?
Well, attached to the agenda is the annual report. And I would say I have an upcoming board meeting in March, and at that time it'll be discussed. So if there's any questions that council has on that annual report, certainly submit those to me. And we'll go from there.
Thank you. Anything on fire boards? Nope, nothing this time. ABC and Upper Thames, changed nothing. Parks and Rec, gonna be nothing. Okay, we're on to staff reports. So we'll pass it over to Ron on the first one, 12.1A, Fire Service Master Plan Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the first report I've got before the council tonight is CAO-03-2024, and it deals with the Fire Services Advisory Committee and specifically the terms of reference. So the report is in the package. It's fairly self-explanatory. This the attached terms of reference really set up the what the goals of and what the committee itself is supposed to bring forth or discuss and then bring forth to council. So they are, if I can just open it for 1 second here, so the mandate is it's an advisory committee to council established by bylaw to make recommendations to council on matters associated with the Fire Services Master Plan. The committee will work with the fire chiefs of Lucan Biddulph and Biddulph Blanchard to review and assess the recommendations from the previously adopted Fire Services Master Plan. So the roles and responsibilities obviously will be to review and assess the recommendations of the Fire Services Master Plan. And then the objective is to sort of lay out or revise first and foremost the establishing and regulating bylaw, and then put forth a work plan that is sustainable and viable, that will establish service levels, inform future operating and capital budgets, and the asset management plan. So basically dissecting the Fire Services Master Plan document, putting it in an order that the committee feels that can be done, put some timelines to it, and bring that back to council. So the composition on that committee is suggested that 2 members of council, the chief of Lucan Biddulph, the chief of the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Board, and also the chair or vice chair of both fire area boards. So that's the recommendation. The term, it's not going to be a short span here. We're talking probably up to 24 months, and that's what I put in the terms of reference there. So, happy to answer any questions if anybody's got, but obviously the recommendation is that council adopt the attached terms of reference in regards to the Fire Services Advisory Committee and instruct staff to bring forth an amendment to the appointment bylaw. And if council does approve that appointment or that bylaw will be brought forth at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions? Okay, Mayor Burger-Jessen, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just Ron, on the composition, 2 members of council. At this time, the chair of the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Area Board is a member of council. So are you suggesting then that there'd be 3 members of council? And then do we get into difficulty with moving ahead? I mean, it's a committee, it has to come to council, but with those numbers, are we in jeopardy of moving council business ahead?
So to answer that question, I would suggest through the deputy mayor to the mayor's question that the staff or the chair will not always or may not always be a member of council. So in this very instance today, it is, and I would suggest in that case, it would count as two. So you, as the chair of the Biddulph or the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Area Board, would also constitute as one member of council. So
Okay.
in this scenario, you would count as both a member of council and as the chair.
Okay, and then okay, no, that's good. That's fine.
It gets a little complicated
Yep.
because you're also the mayor and you're ex officio member of every committee. So it does, but it does give you an option of appointing you and one member of council could
Yep.
constitute it as the members of council, and you could appoint the vice chair, for example, from the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Area Board to fulfill that position.
Okay, no, I appreciate that clarification. I feel better about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Anything further, Councillor Westman? No? Okay, I've got a recommended motion here that report number CAO 03/2024 be received for information, and further that council adopt the attached terms of reference in regards to the new Fire Service Advisory Committee and instruct staff to bring forth amendment to the appointment bylaw. If I get someone to move that, moved by Mayor Burkhart Jessen and seconded by Councillor Westman, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Next, I'm gonna pass it over to Tina on 12.1B, the Municipal Capital Facilities Agreement.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The report in front of you is just regarding presenting a municipal capital facilities agreement for the property that the township currently owns at 171 Main Street, Lucan, which is occupied by Lucan and Area Heritage Society. Just a little background on this property. We do have a 10-year lease agreement with the Lucan Area Heritage Society to lease those lands. And it has previously been exempt from property taxes. However, it was recently notified by MPAC that assessment will be applied in 2024. In order to exempt that facility, there are regulations under the Municipal Act that specify which facilities do qualify for an exemption under the Act. And in this case, the regulation that applies to this facility would be the regulation that the facility is used for cultural, recreational, or tourist purposes, so long as they are readily accessible to the public, operate in a not-for-profit environment, and there are no other commercial operations occurring on the property. So it is our opinion that this museum does meet that regulation, and therefore the Municipal Capital Facilities Agreement can be entered into between Lucan Area Heritage Society and the township. And then that would be sent off to MPAC to meet their requirements to make that property exempt, which ultimately helps them with their operating costs. So if there are no other questions, the township hasn't previously done an agreement of this case, but it was brought to our attention, and it seems fairly straightforward, and we'll send that on once it's signed by, and obviously Lucan Area Heritage is in agreement with the proposed agreement as well.
Very good. No, thank you very much for all staff work on that and time. Thank you very much. Anything further to add? No. Okay, I've got a recommended motion here that report CL-03/2024 be received, and that the council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph declares that the township owned property at 171 Main Street, Lucan and Area Heritage is for cultural purpose and for public use, and that the Township of Lucan Biddulph pass a bylaw pursuant to section 110 of the Municipal Act 2021, authorizing a municipal capital facilities agreement and the exemption of the Lucan and Area Heritage Society at 171 Main Street, Lucan, or portions of the premises from the municipal, county, and education property taxes, and that the clerk be directed to notify the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, the County of Middlesex, and the Secretary of any school board, which includes the land exempted of the enactment of the bylaw. If I get someone to move that and second it. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Burkhart Jessen, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you, Tina. Now I'm gonna go back to Ron for 12.1C, CAO 04/2024 alternate county council appointee.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So this report is specifically dealing with the opportunity, I guess is the best way to describe it, of appointing an alternate county council member to act in the absence of the mayor. So as everyone will by now know, Mayor Kathy has announced publicly on Sunday, February 11th, that she will be the provincial Liberal Party's candidate for the upcoming Lambton Kent Middlesex by-election. That by-election has not yet been called, but when it is, obviously she intends to pursue that. And when she pursues it, it's my understanding that, first of all, that election period is a 28-day period. So while going, and she has stated her intention to forego any Lucan Biddulph remuneration during that 28-day period. Now, while foregoing remuneration during this election period is not required under any legislation, it is considered standard practice. So again, while the mayor is away, the deputy mayor will assume the mayoralty duties and chair any council meetings during the mayor's absence, and that process is covered off in our existing procedural bylaw. So what we're asking for, what we're dealing with in this report, is the opportunity again to appoint the deputy mayor as an alternate to sit on county council during the mayor's absence. There are a couple of very important meetings coming up at the county, not the least of which is passing of the county budget. And you know, obviously we on the tax bills that we issue, we don't just collect the municipal portion, there's also a county portion. That county portion accounts for 33% of that property tax bill. So you know, there is a very large stake from our taxpayers, and I think it's prudent upon council to appoint an alternate so that we do have a voice at that table. So all to say, I go on through here to talk about this section in the act and everything else, but that in a nutshell is what we're talking about here today.
Thank you, Ron. Any further questions to that? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would assume that during that period, the deputy mayor's salary or remuneration would be reflected to be increased to the mayor's rate. I would think that would be appropriate, wouldn't it?
Well, actually, technically, the procedural bylaw does not deal with that. You know, the deputy mayor does get additional remuneration more than the average councillor, and I believe that that's supposed to be. But again, that's another issue. If council wishes to do that, that's within your prerogative.
Yeah, with it being 28 days, fill in, you know, I think that'll be, but I appreciate, I just want to jump in and speak to that. You know, I appreciate the comments, and if it was a 6-month campaign or something, I'd be a little more concerned maybe, but it's 28 days and I'll be counting them down and wishing her luck. So, but anyways, no, thank you for that. But I do want to jump in though. Sorry, I want to jump in that though. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, seeing nothing, I've got a recommended motion that report number CAO 04-2024 be received for information, and further that the deputy mayor be appointed as Lucan, but also alternate member of county council. So moved by Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen and seconded by Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, building bylaw, or just, I guess, Ron and Tina, anything further to add? Tina? Oh.
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing from bylaw and finance, planning, public works. Jeff, we've got one here from you, 12.5A, the tandem snowplow recommended motion there. So we've definitely talked about this, but we talked about it at budget, talked about it several times, I think, in the process. So do you have anything further to add to all your previous comments?
Yeah, I won't go back over, rehash a lot, because you're right, this has been in front of council a couple of times. I just would point out that we did get a price through the Canoe Buying Group, and it was $488,305. When I compared to 2 other local tenders for very, very similar truck and equipment, considering a bit of inflation in that, I'm very confident that that's a good price, and that's why I'm recommending that we move forward with that price.
Oh, good. Glad, and I'm glad you did a little background research. Thank you for doing that, Jeff. Any questions of Jeff? Oh, seeing none, there's a Recommend a motion that report number PW 05/2024 be received and that council authorize staff to accept the Viking quote and purchase of snowplow, tandem truck, and a road grader. Councillor Westman, seconded by Kathy Burkhardt Jessen, Mayor, and all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Sorry, Jeff, do you have something else further to say?
Just double check that it's just the plow truck.
Oh, sorry, what was I
Yeah.
reading there?
Yeah.
Yeah, snowplow,
Okay.
okay.
You'll hear about it again when the grader comes forward.
Okay, gotcha. All right, no, thank you. Did you have anything further, Jeff, you want to add tonight? No. Okay, nothing from Parks and Rec, Economic Development. I don't think there was anything. Councillor comments? No. Almost not plural tonight. Change the budget, no motions. Okay, we're at accounts paid. I've got a recommended motion that council, the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. January 2024, $951,118.62. Councillor Westman, passed by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Burkhardt Jessen. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 16.2, social and economic prosperity review. That I believe was brought forward by, Tina, you can just maybe speak to that. I think that was something we brought forward by Jaden, I think.
Through the chair, at the last meeting, Councillor Hodgins did pull a correspondence item related to this topic, and while we endorse support of that resolution at the time, was also asked that we endorse AMO's actual resolution to send off. So that actual wording and motion is included tonight for adoption, passing.
I've got the motion. If he was here, I'd make him read it since have the power. But anyways, I'll read the motion here. Whereas current provincial municipal fiscal arrangements are undermining Ontario's economic prosperity and quality of life, and whereas nearly a third of municipal spending in Ontario is for services in areas of provincial responsibility and expenditures are outpacing provincial contributions by nearly $4 billion a year. And whereas municipal revenue such as property taxes do not grow with the economy or inflation, and whereas unprecedented population and housing growth will require significant investments in municipal infrastructure, and whereas municipalities are being asked to take on complex health and social challenges like homelessness, supporting asylum seekers, and addressing the mental health and addiction crisis. And whereas inflation, raising interest rates, and provincial policy decisions are sharply constraining municipal fiscal capacity, whereas property taxes, including people on fixed incomes and all small businesses, can't afford to subsidize income redistribution programs for those most in need. And whereas the province can and should invest more in the prosperity of communities, and whereas the municipalities and the provincial government have a strong history of collaboration now, therefore it be resolved that the Township of Lucan Biddulph requests the province of Ontario commit to the undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario. And further, that a copy of this motion is sent to the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, MPP Rob Fleck, and all municipalities of Ontario. If I could get somebody to move that forward, moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Burkhardt Jessen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 16.3, we have talked about this several times. I don't think we unless you want a quick comment on it, if you got something new to add, but
I can quickly comment, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So this is the culmination of the mayor in my meeting with the mayor and CAO of North Middlesex. Of course, the previous discussions have noted that we need to appoint a joint appointee to represent both Lucan and Biddulph and North Middlesex on the soon to be in place detachment board, the OPP detachment board. So this simply formalizes that, and it is to appoint the deputy mayor of North Middlesex to act as our appointee on that board, and that is Deputy Mayor Paul Hodgins.
well, thank you. Was there? I'll go ahead and read the motion. Sorry, did you have a question? Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Just a question. After this motion is passed, I know Thames Center, like they had circulated their motion to us and they also circulated it to the county. Are we going to do the same?
Through the chair, yes. We will circulate it to all the members of the future detachment board. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? No. Recommend a motion that council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph appoints Deputy Mayor Paul Hodgins of the Municipality of North Middlesex to the Middlesex County Police Services Board as a joint representative for North Middlesex and Lucan Biddulph. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Burkhart Jessen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're at bylaws. So 17.1 bylaw 08-2024 being a bylaw to establish remuneration and expenses of council. 17.2 bylaw 09-2024 to authorize entering into an agreement with Lucan and Area Heritage Society for the provision of the municipal capital facilities and an exemption from taxation. And 17.3 bylaw 10-24 to adopt and confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph at the council meeting held February 20th, 2024. Recommend a motion that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 08-2024 through 10-2024 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. Moved by Mayor Burkhart Jessen, seconded by Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And that concludes our night. Well, thank you very much for joining us virtually, Mayor Burkhart Jessen. And have a good night, everybody. I recommend a motion resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:08. Moved by Councillor Westman, seconded by Mayor Burkhart Jessen. All in favor?